We came here originally, we won tickets playing poker. One person had these little things called companion passes. We decided to try using them to fly as far as we could. And we landed in Indonesia, it was in 97, June something, 1997. The day the rupiah went right off the cliff, from 2,000 to the dollar to 17,000 to the dollar overnight. The fall of Suharto and what they call the crisis monetary. We knew that Indonesia was sort of the origin story of permaculture for the grandfather of permaculture, this guy Bill Mollison. And so we wanted to go there and see this really rich cultural heritage of sustainable agriculture. But what we saw were traditional communities that were really marginalized, and their agriculture was broken. It wasn't working. This one boy in particular, I remember, was out in the field and he was literally pouring a bottle of DDT into a bucket of water and hand broadcasting that pesticide water over the plants. He had no idea what the chemical was because the instructions were written in English. He had no idea of the damage he was doing to himself, to his environment, to his resource base. And for us, that was really, that still is the epitome of what we're trying to change here. We were down at the local market in Klungkong, and we were walking around the market and we found these blocks of sugar, brown sugar. It was the most incredible. It's not like sugar. When you eat coconut sugar for the first time, a block, it's like a butter caramel. And we were just blown away. Where does this come from? And the person said, oh, produksi di Dawan. It's produced in Dawan. So we hopped on our motorbike, figured out where Dawan was. And I remember we got off, there's a bridge in the north of the village, and we ran into this guy. We didn't know who he was, but he was walking through the forest with a bamboo yoke over his shoulders and these little polished coconuts hanging off on strings. And they gave us our first sip of fresh flower nectar. And that was it. That was 18 years ago, and we've been fast friends ever since. This is Mangku Dawan's house. This is a really traditional Balinese compound. You see there's a little wall right there. The door itself is called the Kapura, and then the wall keeps evil spirits out of the compound because the evil spirits obviously can't figure out how to make a left or a right. You got your whole family, and each family is living in a little house within the compound. And then the big center of the compound is the temple. You can see in the back corner over there, there's like a tube hanging from the wall. That's honey collection. So everywhere we go today, you're gonna see people inhabiting the landscape and production. Bali is a food forest. There's food everywhere. So, most Balinese have sawa, or production land, but that's your annual cropping cycle land. We're using really expensive, high inputs, fertilizers and pesticides. And then they have what they call abyan or kebun, meaning the backyard garden. It was just used to sustain the family and what the family needs. Almost considered of no value. You think you're walking through the jungle, but you're not walking through the jungle. You're walking through an almost perfect blend of maintained wild forest. We've got cacao right here. Hardwoods, this is a teak tree. The coconuts obviously on either side. Mangosteen, mango right here. That's a durian. Below it are the bananas. And over here, that's all pandan. And then right behind you, this is all bongkot, which is torch ginger. And everything in here, everything has a purpose. Everything's got a use. The coconuts that are all across here, they do two things really well. They create a canopy of shade so that you don't have intense sunlight, because most of the crops that are that are growing down here can't handle intense direct sunlight. And then the other thing that they do is they draw moisture up. They're incredible water sources. They bring up a huge amount of water, and they only use about 1/5 of the water that they bring to the surface. So you can have a relatively arid area, and the coconuts will make water available for everything around it. They call them the trees of life. The coconut is it's not a dicot, meaning it's not like the trees that we have in the States with the xylem and a phloem, and it pulls one up and the waste goes out the other. It's just a big straw, and it just sucks all the liquid straight up, all the way up the trunk, And then if you cut the flower, if you cut the tip of the flower, there's a positive pressure and it just pushes the liquid that's come all the way through the starch of the tree all the way up, out the flower. And it's filled with sugars. The coconut flower is actually a bunch of fingers. And those fingers have inflorescences, or tiny little flowers all over them. And that process continues in a spiral fashion, and that's actually how the tree grows, like a spiral. So in order to harvest, you first have to wrap that whole mayang, or the bunch of flowers, and then he's just cutting the tip off that flower, just a tiny little sliver, like you're slicing cold cuts. And over the course of a month of harvesting every single day, he'll use up that flower, and then he'll move on to the next flowers. The coconut tree is constantly producing flowers, and you can constantly produce nira every single day. These are the collection vessels. They're just coconut shells. And then inside, if you take a look inside, we have what's called lau. And what that is limestone, just literally rocks from the garden, chopped up. And they blend it with jackfruit wood, and they soak it in water. And that liquid has a pH of about 11. And up in those trees, all around the flowers, there's all sorts of, pollinators. And there's a ton of wild yeast. And so when the nira ferments so fast, you have two choices. Turn it into coconut sugar right away, or you can wait until 5 p.m. and sit around and drink out of 5-gallon jugs and have a party with your friends. It turns into tuak, just sort of a bubbly beer. So the lau, the liquid that's in here right now, the purpose is to prevent that fermentation. This is long before there were pH meters. I have no idea how they figured out how to prevent it from fermenting so they could make sugar, but you get some extra protein with the beverage. Yeah, the only one you just gotta remove the bees.
Yeah.
Once we bring down the fresh flower nectar, then we're gonna go and you pour it into a big wok, and you cook it down over an open fire. And as you concentrate it, it gets sweeter and sweeter and sweeter until first you have a syrup. And then once you get to about 105 Celsius, as it cools, it will harden. All Indonesians, when they're making the coconut sugar, will bring it to around that temperature. They don't use thermometers, but they look at the way the bubbles form. And once they get to this certain point, they'll take it off and they'll pour it into these half coconut shells, a batok kelapa. So that sugar that's formed as it hardens is called gula batok, coconut shell sugar. The Balinese never saw the abyan, or the kebun, the backyard garden, as valuable. And as a result, the family focus on the backyard garden was sort of disappearing as Indonesia modernizes. Big Tree Farms focuses entirely on these food forests, really maximizing what they've got here by helping them reconnect with their traditional agriculture and bring that to consumers around the world. We're talking about sustainability and the beauty of the fact that this is sort of the Balinese production system that's removed from the economy. So, are we screwing it up by connecting this resource to the economy? They're becoming more and more marginalized, not because they're insulated from the market economy, but because they're being so disrupted by the market economy. These farmers don't understand how to work within the market economy. You can absolutely live and work within the market economy and manage a sustainable lifestyle. And so that's really that's the focus of Big Tree Farms, is trying to give these farmers the power of a choice. The market economy is here. You can either get steamrolled by it, or you can learn how to work within it and take advantage of it using the sustainable resource base that you have. With the global market, we were able to take the market price of coconut sugar and bring it to a point at which this marginalized group of producers was actually making a living and making a comfortable living. The real impact is the fact that the coconuts themselves, 1 acre of coconuts is about 75 trees. Those 75 trees on that acre produce 50 to 70% more sugar than a whole acre of cane. And it's so much more sustainable because you plant it once and it will produce every single day for 60 to 80 years. 75 trees, you've used about 1/16 of the actual land space. So then below that, you've got all of this incredible land available with now a shaded, high water capacity resource to grow all secondary crops. So coconuts create this incredible ecosystem. The lesson that we've learned from coconut sugar is that in tradition, there's so much wisdom. And if we look in traditional production systems all over the world, there's opportunities to create much more energy efficient alternatives that are better for you, better for the environment, better for the communities. We've seen that we can take the tradition, improve the way they're harvesting, improve the quality of the finished product, and get an incredibly fair price for the work that they're doing. At the same time, consumers, they can choose a product that is functionally the same as what they're used to. It tastes better than what they're used to. The price is effectively the same as what they're used to, but it has so much more of an impact. There's a story behind it. There's actually a community that's being supported behind that product in a very good way. That's what we do at Big Tree.